Hey guys, it's Kier and I'm back with another video. In this video, we'll be going through my ranking of the top 25 best players heading into this upcoming season. You should know that this list is primarily based off of players' production over the last 3 seasons, where I go through advanced analytics via MoneyPuck. However, their production from last season is weighed more, which is why there are a lot of younger players on this list. Also important to note that their projections for this coming season is also weighed, so things based off of their age, their teammates, and whether they had a career season last year or an off year last year are all things that I consider. Now I'll mention 10 players who just narrowly missed this list. So there's Rasmus Dahlin, Artemi Panarin, Roope Hintz, Brady Tkachuk, Dougie Hamilton, Clayton Keller, Mark Stone, William Nylander, Erik Karlsson, and Linus Ullmark. So now that I have mentioned that, we can begin. Starting at number 25, I have Brayden Point. He had a career season last year on a 95-point pace, and he has averaged 79-point pace over the last 3 seasons. He's also pretty good defensively, but will likely regress this year considering his team's circumstances. Moving on to number 24, I have Micah Zibanejad. He has scored at a 91-point pace last season, and he's averaged a point per game pace over the last 3 years. He hits, he draws penalties, and he is reliable defensively. But just above him, I have Miro Heiskanen, who had a breakout season last year with a 76-point pace, and he's only 24 and is likely to continue to break out this year. And he's a great overall defenseman and is still reliable defensively. At number 22, I have Connor Hellebuyck. In my opinion, he's the 3rd best goalie in the world. He finished 3rd in Vezina votes last season with a .920 save percentage and a 2.49 goals against average, playing 64 games last year. He just needs to have another incredible season like that to jump a little bit higher on this list. Moving on to number 21, I have Andrei Vasilevskiy, who is the 2nd best goalie in my opinion, and he finished top 6 in Vezina votes over the last 3 years, despite having a slight down season this year, where he had a 9.15 save percentage and a 2.65 goals against average. He's still more consistent than Hellebuyck, at least so far, and he's heavily relied on as well, having played over 60 games over the last 2 seasons. Now for the top 20, I have Tage Thompson, who exploded this year with a 99-point pace, and he's not bad defensively either. He's only 25 years old, so he can still improve or repeat similar numbers this season. At number 19, I have Kirill Kaprizov, who was at a 92-point pace last year and averaged that points per game over his entire career so far. He's also pretty good defensively, but he just needs to be a little bit more consistent in the playoffs to improve. At number 18, I have Mitch Marner, who had an 101-point pace last year and averaged 104-point pace over the last 3 years. He is also pretty good defensively, but names above him are just slightly better. So at number 17, I have Aleksander Barkov, who had a 94-point pace last year and is amazing defensively, averaging a 99-point pace over the last 3 years. He had just a slight down year last season, and I expect him to prove this time. At number 16, I have Mr. Consistent Sidney Crosby, scoring 93 points last year and averaging 95-point pace over the last 3 years. And he's still a great overall player. However, he's 36 years old, and it is possible that his production regresses slightly this year. At number 15, I have Tim Stutzle, and don't underestimate how good he is and will be this coming season. He scored a 95-point pace last year, and only Jack Hughes, McDavid, Crosby, and Ovechkin have better offensive seasons than he did for a player 21 years or younger since the lockout. And he almost doubled Crosby's hits from last year. He had a better penalty differential, he blocks more shots, had more takeaways and similar giveaways, and created more goals than Crosby, and he's likely to further improve. At number 14, I have Adam Fox, who I believe is the 2nd best defenseman. He was on pace for 72 points last year. He was a Norris finalist and won the Norris already over the past 3 seasons. He's one of the best, if not the best, overall defenseman, as he's averaged a 73-point pace over the last 3 seasons while being very solid defensively, blocking shots and getting many takeaways. At 13, I have Jack Hughes. Now, he was on pace for 104 points last year and is only 22 years old and getting better. He still needs to improve defensively to be higher in this list, but he's already a beast at such a young age. Now, moving on to number 12, I have Jason Robertson. He had 109 points last year and averaged a 90-point pace for the last 3 seasons. And he's utterly unstoppable offensively and is not bad defensively either. And he's only 24 years old and is still likely to get better. Moving on to number 11, I have Elias Pettersson. Now, he had a huge breakout season last year with a 105-point pace, and he's likely to repeat the success being only 24 years old. And he's slightly ahead of Robertson simply because he hits more. He drew 64 more penalties than he took last year. He blocks way more shots than Robertson as well and is better overall defensively. Moving into the top 10, I have the best goalie in the world, Ilya Sorokin. He played over 60 games last year and had a .924 save percentage and a 2.34 goals against average. And he averaged those numbers over his first 3 seasons in the NHL. He finished second in Vezina Trophy votings last season, and he finished 6th the year before that, and he carried a really mid-Islanders team to the playoffs and almost to round 2. Matthew Tkachuk comes in at number 9, and he's an offensive monster with an 113-point pace last season, and he's averaged a 93-point pace over the last 3 years. And he's unbelievable in the playoffs, especially last season, and the only issue is that he's not as great defensively as other people on this list. So moving on to number 8, I have Mikko Rantanen, who had 105 points last season, and he's averaged an 103-point pace over the last 3 years. He's better overall than Matthew Tkachuk. He scores, he hits, and he's pretty solid defensively too. At number 7, I have Nikita Kucherov, who had 113 points last season and has averaged an 112-point pace over the last 3 seasons. Not great defensively though, and he's a bit one-dimensional. However, his points put him high on this list. Just outside the top 5, I have Auston Matthews, who had a down season last year and was on pace for 94 points. But over the last 3 years, he's averaged an 106-point pace. And I have him higher than Nikita Kucherov simply because he's phenomenal defensively, and he's a 2-dimensional superstar. I think next season he will also improve. So coming in at number 5, I have Cale Makar, who in my opinion is the best defenseman at only 24 years old, and he had a 90-point pace last season and averaged an 88-point pace over the last 3 seasons. He's very defensively solid as well. At number 4, I have David Pastrnak, who's the highest riser on this list. He had a career year, 62 goals and an 113-point season, and he's averaged 94 points pace over the last 3 years. He hits and he draws more penalties than Cale Makar. He's on the ice for more shots and goals, and he had a higher point share over the last season, which is why I have him at number 4. But he is likely to drop off just a little bit this season. Moving on to number 3, I have Nathan MacKinnon. He had an 128-point pace last season and averaged an 117-point pace over the last 3 seasons, which is just ridiculous. He's pretty good defensively too, and he's an absolute beast in the playoffs. But just edging him out at number 2, I have Leon Draisaitl. Very, very close between him and MacKinnon, but Draisaitl also had an 128-point pace last season and has averaged a 51-goal, 122 points pace over the last 3 seasons. In the playoffs, he's the best player ever, other than Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux in points per game so far in his career. And Draisaitl hits more, takes fewer penalties, is better at face-offs, and has a better on-ice expected goals differential over MacKinnon. But coming in at number 1, as you guys already know, we have Connor McDavid. There's not much to say other than he's averaged an 143-point pace over the last 3 seasons. Absolutely insane. And he had the highest scoring season since Mario Lemieux. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know down below in the comment sections whether you agree or disagree with my rankings. I would love to hear your feedback, so comment. Please like the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys with another video.